English translation. 621st contact. Thursday, the 30th of April, 2015, 15:37 hours.
Here I am, my friend. I still had something to do after the long correction. If it's all right with you, we can get right to the point.
Then I will begin right away with what you have asked Florina to do with the fact that we should endeavor to establish the decisive role of the FIGU Board of Directors. Also with regard to a conciliation task which, in your opinion, should also belong to the tasks of the Board of Directors rather than to a special conciliation group. We have found this in the committee and consider your idea to be very good, namely that in addition to the board's tasks, the board should also form an arbitration board, which we call the FIGU Board's Arbitration Committee, which must be classified as a correct and regulated procedure.
Exactly, because I have instructed Florina to clarify with you how a conciliation group should behave, because there is nothing in writing about this in our country. Which is why I would be glad, as I said to Florina, if you could construct something in the committee which we could record in the statutes as a special article of conduct for a conciliation group. In my opinion, there should be certain rules of conduct and procedures in place for this group, which I would like to see placed on the board of directors, which make it clear how, for example, something must be handled when there is a need for a FIGU member to be invited to a debate in the FIGU conciliation group.
With this in mind, we also consulted each other in the committee and came to the following advice, which is explicitly related to the association FIGU, Freie Interessengemeinschaft, and its core group of 49, and which I want to explain to you in such a way that you can use the whole thing as a finished Articles of Association. Regulation of the tasks of the Management Board and tasks of the Management Board Mediation Committee. 1A. The FIGU Executive Board is a formed FIGU group for the fulfillment of certain tasks, which is given by the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly in a resolution passed by the FIGU Corporation Freie Interessengemeinschaft. B. The FIGU Executive Board in the FIGU Core Group of 49 consists of 9 persons. C. With regard to the FIGU Core Group of 49, the FIGU Executive Committee is the executive body authorized by the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly to manage the FIGU Association, Core Group of 49 and the other groups. D. The FIGU Executive Committee is the managing body authorized by the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly with regard to external representation vis-a-vis offices, authorities, organizations, and private persons, etc. 2A. The FIGU Executive Board monitors the internal and external compliance with the orders and resolutions of the General Assembly of the FIGU Core Group of 49. B. The FIGU Board of Directors is responsible for orienting the FIGU Core Group of 49 members on falling problems and agenda items that need to be solved and dealt with. In an extended framework, this also applies to passive and secondary groups when these raise issues that need to be addressed by the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly. C. The FIGU Board of Directors is responsible for the effort to preserve the development and continuity of the FIGU mission, its independence, neutrality, and the internal and external security of the FIGU Association, while respecting and abiding by the traditional neutrality, laws, regulations, and ordinances of Switzerland. D. The FIGU Executive Committee shall be committed to implementing the decisions of the core group of the 49. General Assembly with regard to the core objective of safeguarding and developing FIGU principles such as democracy, liberty, peace, justice, equality of all people, neutrality, independence, and harmony. 3A. As such, the Executive Committee shall also form a conciliation committee appointed by the FIGU Core Group of the 49 General Assembly to settle disagreements between the FIGU Core Group of 49 members, to settle violations of Articles and Articles of Association and the FIGU mission, or to take action against FIGU reputation-damaging machinations, etc. B. The Board shall establish a conciliation committee, clarify any facts that arise, and invite any inappropriate members to appear before the Board Conciliation Committee, taking into account the following procedures. A. The chairman of the FIGU Executive Board Conciliation Committee shall inform all members of the FIGU Executive Board Conciliation Committee in detail about the facts in a factual and impartial manner before an erroneous member has to appear before the Conciliation Committee. B. At the conciliation meeting, the chairman of the FIGU Executive Board of the Conciliation Committee shall, in an objective manner, present several objection facts to the offending member who has been summoned before the Conciliation Committee, not as a whole but individually and fact by fact. So it is not acceptable that several objectionable or clarifiable things/facts are brought together and named in one go, but only each individual fact alone. The whole must be carried out in such a way that, on the one hand, each individual fact is presented as a factual questioning form in relation to a given fact and not as offensiveness, or, on the other hand, if necessary, as a clear statement, if an effectively indisputable fact exists, and this is to be discussed in a statement manner. In any case, the guilty member must take a clear and open stance on each individual fact and be invited to speak and answer, whereby the opinions, considerations, and conclusions of all FIGU board members must also be demanded of them as a whole. C. It must therefore be ensured that neither the chairman of the FIGU Board of the Conciliation Committee nor any other member of the FIGU Board of Conciliators submits a litany or a list of errors, etc. to a member of the Conciliation Committee, but only one fact after the other in questioning or declaratory form, so that the member of the Conciliation Committee can clearly justify or take a stand on each individual case. And only when the one thing has been clarified through questions and answers can and may a next fact be brought up. Because only in this way is it possible that arising facts can be clarified satisfactorily and, under certain circumstances, correct decisions can be made and justified measures taken. D. In the event of misconduct against the statutes or rules of procedure, etc. The FIGU Executive Board Conciliation Committee shall, in the event of a difference of opinion or dispute, decide by the Conciliation Committee solely in accordance with the FIGU statutes, rules of procedure, and logic, whether a fault based on liability exists and whether, under certain circumstances, necessary measures must be taken or warnings and behaviors issued if such are necessary. E. In cases in which a liability-based misconduct of a FIGU member is determined that the whole thing has to be assessed and dealt with by the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly, the FIGU Executive Board Conciliation Committee shall present the matter to the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly and possibly submit a proposal for a decision, according to which the FIGU Core Group shall then decide the matter by a unanimous decision of the Core Group. If a member, who is summoned before the Board Arbitration Committee, requests this himself, that the whole is to be dealt with directly by the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly, then this has to make an attempt at arbitration or a correction, or to determine an appropriate measure. F. The members of the FIGU Executive Board Conciliation Committee are free in their decision and subject to their conscience, but are subject to the rules of order, statutes, and statutes of the FIGU, and are obliged to follow their instructions in any case. G. The activity in the FIGU Executive Board Conciliation Committee corresponds to an honorary office, and each member is obliged to exercise and carry out the assumed tasks correctly and impartially. H. The chairperson of the FIGU Board Conciliation Committee is responsible for ensuring that the proper conduct of each procedure is maintained in an absolutely correct manner, but the chairperson is not entitled to issue procedural orders alone, but only in cooperation and unanimity with all board conciliation members, or the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly. I, the FIGU Executive Board Conciliation Committee alone decides on procedural matters, provided that there is no obstacle to the implementation of the procedure, which would require a procedure before the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly. J. The FIGU Board of Directors Conciliation Committee shall convene a meeting of the FIGU Core Group of 49 General Assembly as necessary to deal with a matter and bring about a decision which, as in the Board of Directors Conciliation Committee, can in any case only be unanimous with respect to a resolution as required by the FIGU bylaws, and FIGU Rules of Procedure.
Thank you very much for these remarks and for your contribution to the Articles of Association. The whole thing is clear and understandable and helps us to establish, adhere to, and follow certain guidelines. Then today I want to address something that your father Svath has already talked about, but also you in various private conversations. Namely, that many people tend to brutality and violence, and even exhibit psychopathic forms, because they have a lack of serotonin, which is also called happiness hormone. Also, low heartbeat and pulse, as he said, should be responsible in many people for the fact that people fall prey to brutality, violent irascibleness, violence and unpredictability. Very quickly go off in an uncontrolled manner and even commit serious crimes such as murder and manslaughter, as is also the case with corresponding hereditary material or genetic material. Is caused by hereditary genes that control certain enzymes in the brain, which can then trigger violent crimes if man is not capable of handling everything to such an extent that he has absolute control over everything and remains calm, clear and reasonable. Consequently, there is no degeneration. Firstly, I should like to ask you whether you have any official intention of saying anything about serotonin in general, because I think we should talk about it openly.
That's what I would like to do, in the following way. Serotonin is a messenger substance that lifts the mood, but it must be noted that the necessary and regular physical as well as mental conscious movement is also very important to lift the mood. This also avoids depression because a serotonin deficiency is a factor that can promote the development of depression. The whole body and the brain, as well as thoughts, feelings, and the psyche need the messenger substance serotonin. And only when the serotonin level is right can the brain and the whole body, as well as the world of thoughts and feelings, remain in balance. The serotonin, also called enteramine or 5-hydroxytryptamine 5-HT, has several other functions because it also plays a very important role in the transmission of signals in the brain, as the 5-HT also influences the contraction of the blood vessels. Serotonin is also important in the intestinal nervous system, as it controls the peristalsis of the intestines and ensures further transport and mixing of the comminuted food. Serotonin is also called happiness hormone, but dopamine and norepinephrine are equally effective. If, however, there is a lack of serotonin in the brain, then various symptoms occur, such as depressive moods, as already mentioned, but also strong anxiety, aggression, as well as brutality and violence. Appetite can also increase considerably, and body temperature, sexual behavior, and the awake-sleep rhythm can change considerably. Serotonin deficiency causes many processes of the body to fall out of balance and therefore has a more or less great influence on various ailments, such as the development of migraine as well as a disturbed sense of pain. In contrast to a serotonin deficiency, an excess of serotonin can also have a major negative effect on the organism, usually resulting in a pathological disturbance of the hormone balance. However, through exercise and diet, it is almost impossible to achieve a serotonin surplus. One possibility for serotonin excess can be caused by interactions with certain medications, often caused by antidepressants, which can cause anxiety and agitation, increased muscle tension and twitching, as well as restlessness and tremors. Although the body can produce serotonin itself, strenuous physical activity, such as gymnastics and sports, and work increase serotonin production because physical activity increases the amino acid tryptophan, which is necessary for the body to create serotonin from it. So regular exercise can permanently increase the serotonin level. Serotonin, or an intermediate product thereof, is also contained in many foods, such as high-quality chocolate with a high cocoa content. Serotonin is mainly found in certain tropical fruits, such as pineapples, bananas, cocoa, and kiwi, but also in various fruits and vegetables, including tomatoes. Serotonin is also found in the legume Mucuna pruriens itch bean, in the thorns of stinging nettles, and in many other plant species. The highest concentration of serotonin is found in higher mushrooms, walnuts, and hickory walnuts, as well as in plums, fresh figs, papaya, and avocado. Serotonin is not only an important chemical in humans, but also in animals, and plants, whereby this messenger substance found in plants is called phytoserotonin. However, it should be noted that serotonin levels can only be influenced to a small extent by the diet, because this messenger substance cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. It should also be said that the precursors to serotonin, such as 5-HTP and tryptophan in consuming foods containing serotonin, cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, hence they have no effect on the serotonin level in the brain. And this because only a finely ground, raw and mineral-rich plant food enables all the necessary conditions to increase serotonin formation in the brain, whereby the South American pseudo-grain varieties amaranth and quinoa in particular provide a perfect combination of protein with tryptophan and carbohydrates, so that serotonin can cross the blood-brain barrier.
However, there are serotonin supplements that are widely available on the market.
Such serotonin pills are usually useless because they do not contain or contain too little L-tryptophan. So it is pointless to simply take large amounts of such substances in the form of pills or powder because, as I said, the substances cannot pass the blood-brain barrier. So if these drugs are swallowed, they won't get to where they're needed in the brain because L-tryptophan is needed for that. And it's a key to serotonin that can cross the blood-brain barrier and get from the intestine to the brain.
But as a doctor, you are also concerned with what dietary supplements can really help people. And I think that you certainly know something about serotonin that can be good for raising serotonin levels.
There is only one food supplement that I know of and that I have analyzed and found to be useful. It is available as certified Bio-Inca Gold in free trade, is also called Inca Coast, and is gluten-free and lactose-free. The product I analyzed is a raw-quality amaranth and quinoa product that also contains a high enough amount of L-tryptophan to ensure that serotonin reaches the brain where it is needed. Bio-Inca Gold consists of the exceptionally vital grain of the two power plants, amaranth and quinoa, and is particularly rich in L-tryptophan, the main building block for the production of serotonin.
If this food supplement can be bought in free trade, then it can probably be found on the internet under Bio-Inca Gold or Inca Coast, right?
This will probably be the case, but care must be taken to ensure that it is a valuable product.
Of course, because you have to be careful when you buy things on the internet, because a lot of junk and absolutely worthless things are sold and people are betrayed with it. Can I have a look at the internet to see if I can find something that fits into the right framework you mentioned?
Of course.
Then I want to search under Bio-Inca Gold, yes, this here under product list. Inca Gold, Bio Profil Shop Switzerland, gives me a good impression. Let's see, when I open it, yes, let's read what the description says. Aha, and here is a second description from another source. So let's read.
Product list: Bioprofil Shop Switzerland, BIOINCA Gold, a totally natural way to get more serotonin and a good mood. Serotonin is one of the most important messenger substances in our body.
Serotonin is a regulating hormone in the central intestinal, nervous, and cardiovascular systems. Its functions alone in these three central body systems show its enormous importance. In addition, serotonin is one of the oldest neurotransmitters, messenger substance, with the nerve impulses. In the history of nerve cells, It also occurs in plants, fungi, and even in protozoa. The various tasks in the brain, such as the regulation of the mood, have turned it into the so-called well-being hormone or happiness hormone. The role of serotonin in the alternation of sleep and wakefulness is also well known. On the one hand, it is itself involved in this. On the other hand, it is the precursor of the sleep hormone melatonin. It should be completely surprising for many that most serotonin is formed in the nerve cells of the intestine, 95% of the total amount. There it controls the intestinal peristalsis and many other factors of intestinal health. At the same time, blood platelets absorb the serotonin and distribute it throughout the body. How is serotonin produced? The following substances are required for the production of serotonin: the essential amino acid I. It cannot be produced by the body itself, but must be supplied: tryptophan, vitamins of the B group, vitamin C, magnesium, manganese, omega-3 fatty acids, and zinc. A decisive fact is that the serotonin produced in the body cannot enter the brain, so that the body itself has to produce serotonin if the brain functions are to function correctly. Problems with the synthesis of brain serotonin. The above-mentioned minerals, vitamins, and fatty acids can easily pass through the blood-brain barrier, but not the tryptophan. Unfortunately, in the presence of other amino acids, as happens after protein-rich meals, it is more or less blocked at the blood-brain barrier. However, you can avoid this effect by either sending much more tryptophan to the blood-brain barrier or by significantly reducing the number of other amino acids, at least until enough brain serotonin is produced. The solution to the problem: a finely ground raw C below and mineral-rich vegetable food offers all the prerequisites to increase serotonin formation in the brain. The pseudo-grains amaranth and quinoa, staple foods in South America for centuries, provide the perfect combination of protein with tryptophan and carbohydrates. If 4 capsules are taken on an empty stomach, their fine fibrous materials form an aqueous solution with plenty of liquid immediately after ingestion, which is let through from the stomach, unhindered into the small intestine. Due to the low digestive work and rapid absorption, the ingredients soon end up in the blood. Inca Gold contains an abundance of amino acids, as well as a balanced mixture of carbohydrates of different lengths. The latter attract the transport hormone insulin, which not only transports glucose into the cells, but also the amino acids that have just arrived in the bloodstream into the mitochondria power plants of the skeletal muscles. In this way, all tangible amino acids are used for energy production, with only one exception, namely the amino acid tryptophan, which does not fit into the absorption pattern of the skeletal muscles. A prerequisite for this is the state of being sober, so that the muscles have a need for energy. By consuming Inca Gold, you eliminate the competition of the other amino acids. Tryptophan can easily penetrate into the brain and is available for the buildup of serotonin in larger quantities. Since the half-life of serotonin is 21 hours, taking 4 capsules only once a day ensures a sufficient availability of serotonin in the brain. Importance of raw food quality. Inca Gold is not heated above 40 degrees during the entire manufacturing process, which is why all vital substances and enzymes are original and active, and can therefore be used very well by the body. This applies primarily to the amino acid tryptophan, which is usually destroyed by heating, cooking, roasting, baking, pasteurizing, preserving in the usual diet, and is therefore available in insufficient quantities. Recommendation for use: take 4 capsules. Bio Inca Gold daily on an empty stomach with some liquid. After 10 minutes, when the capsules have dissolved, drink a glass of water. Ingredients: amaranth, quinoa, finely ground nutrition information, energy/nutrients per 100 g calories, 15-17 kJ, 362 kilocalories. Carbohydrates 63.00 g, fats 5.75 g, protein approx. 14.50 g asterisk. These statements are not sufficiently scientifically substantiated because detailed scientific reviews are not yet available. However, the arguments are in accordance with the available general knowledge as far as verifiable. Further source: Fair Trade, Handels Ag. De Inca Gold consists of the exceptionally vital grain of the 2 power plants, quinoa and amaranth. This Inca diet is particularly rich in L-tryptophan, the main building block for the production of serotonin. Inca Gold, for durability and endurance, quinoa and amaranth are 2 plants rich in proteins and vital substances. The seeds of quinoa and amaranth have been the staple food of the South American indigenous population for thousands of years, and in some places they still are today, and, with their wealth of nutrients and minerals, ensured their above average, in some cases legendary, resistance and stamina. Magnesium winner and calcium king, quinoa and amaranth are the most iron and magnesium-rich foods in the category of holistic and wholesome cereal products. Amaranth is also the uncrowned calcium king in this group and provides almost twice as much of the bone-strengthening material as cow's milk. Protein champion quinoa and amaranth are also the protein champions in this category, with 13.8 and 14.6 grams of protein per 100 grams. Quinoa and amaranth are particularly rich in L-tryptophan, an amino acid that is the main building block for the production of the important hormone serotonin. Inca Gold in raw vegetable quality. Inca Gold is not heated above 40 degrees during the entire manufacturing process, which is why all enzymes, vital and micronutrients are present in a lively and highly bioavailable form.
How do you like the way this thing is described?
Neither of these statements requires further explanation. And the product in question obviously corresponds to what must be expected of it. Of course, the food supplement must be tried by those who want to take it, according to the instructions and their own body, and medical advice should also be considered if there are any uncertainties, etc.
This should of course be taken into account when there are concerns or ambiguities, even if they are dietary supplements.
That must be self-evident.
But I would like to get an answer regarding what it is about when people have a very low heartbeat and pulse, which Svath and you have been talking about. Besides, I recently read something that now our earthly scientists have come to the same conclusions as you.
Basically, man is born purely naturally as a being that is neutral and therefore neither good nor evil, even if there is some genetic strain. Even though basic prerequisites such as psychopathy, etc. are given, this does not mean that the human being degenerates in this way and must therefore become an active psychopath or a serious criminal. This also applies to people who have a slow heartbeat and pulse or inactive brain cells, or who have a much too low serotonin level and a weak ability to control, so that they do not degenerate in an evil way and do not have to become serious criminals. Many such congenital damages, such as toxic metals like lead and cadmium in the brain and body, which manifest themselves in a dysfunction of the brain and in a deficient or underdeveloped vegetative nervous system, make people aggressive, violent, impulsive, cold-blooded, sadistic, and otherwise very emotional. And if you are talking about a permanent low heartbeat and pulse, then this will appear because the nervous system is functionally only working in a reduced way. And if there is a permanent system subfunction, then the whole thing urges to finally attain higher functions and values so that the person feels better. And according to how he controls and behaves in all his emotions, he then acts accordingly, so in good as in evil. External life and educational factors very often also play a very important role in the whole, such as poverty, poor general and school education, educational or other violence, bodily harm as well as religious and sectarian aberrations, etc. And finally, it has to be said that every human being, no matter whether he has genetically caused harmful genetic predispositions or inactive brain cells, etc., or physical damages, does not have to let these break through in any way and does not have to live them out. Every man capable of understanding and reason is capable of controlling all his emotions and, in this regard, of determining what he wants to do and what he does not want to do. This is also the case when certain genetic predispositions or certain inactive brain cell structures are present. Even if a person has hereditary genetic brain or physical defects, this in no way means that he or she has to lead a criminal or criminal life. Basically, he has in any case the possibility, if he is pregnant with his mind and his reason, to willfully control his behavior in any form, if he consciously strives for it and perceives the responsibility for himself as well as for his thoughts, feelings, and actions. So it only wonders whether man becomes aware of his thoughts and feelings and all his emotions, and whether he builds up the strength in himself to consciously create the will to precisely control everything and actually bring it under his control in order to refrain from false, criminal and serious criminal acts. If he is unable to do this without help, then good psychological treatment can be just as helpful as a range of appropriately tested medications that can be administered by professionals.
Thank you for your execution, which I think is understandable. You also say that every person who is pregnant with his mind and his reason is responsible for how he arranges his thoughts and feelings and carries out his actions and deeds, even if he has any genetic or physical damage, inactive brain cells or serotonin deficiency, etc. So I see the whole thing in such a way that if man is healthy and normal with regard to his mind and his reason, then he can and is able to think clearly and also consciously and deliberately steer his behavior in a good, correct way despite congenital genetic or other damages. Thus, he does not necessarily degenerate according to his damages, etc., and must become an antisocial human being, a criminal or a serious criminal. Basically, that is how I understand it. Even a person with damage, as they were called by you, can think absolutely clearly and rationally and build up a will to fight against his harmful predispositions and deliberately let only the healthy, good, positive and right behaviors become effective. If this does not happen, however, that the necessary control as well as the equally necessary will for it is not built up in order to steer everything in the right direction, no matter whether for reasons of unwillingness, negligence, wantonness, cowardice, indifference, jealousy, hatred, or other unworthy impulses, then the person in question is absolutely self-responsible for his actions and feelings, and thus of course also for his thoughts and feelings as well as all impulses of any kind. And this means that in any case there is no excuse for degeneration in any way, not even if there is a brain-like or other inner dysfunction and man is still pregnant with his clear mind and reason. So I understand in this way that no pardon, no reason for mitigating punishment can be given either way if acts are committed which must be described as violent, criminal or serious crimes, and therefore in every case a strict punishment must be appropriate, whereby an appropriate and just punishment according to the severity of the act is unavoidable.
It is not necessary to go into this further, except to say that affect actions must not be measured by the same yardstick. For in affect it is hardly possible for man to control himself with regard to his lightning actions and lightning deeds.
I can understand that, but then I still have a question in relation to lying and slander, by which I mean pathological or notorious lying and slander. Can it also be assumed in this respect that congenital dysfunctions, etc. in the brain can be held responsible for this?
This is indeed as you say, but these malfunctions, as you call them, can also be controlled and prevented by reason and reason, as is the case with so-called normal lies and slander, as is usually the case with the majority of human beings on Earth, and can absolutely not be called disease-related, but must usually be explained with fear and anxiety as well as with protective measures and the gaining of advantages, etc.
I understand, but I think that in this respect a lie is not equal to a lie, but has to be judged according to the case, just according to how it is acted as a result of fear, anxiety, protection, conditionality, and gain of advantage.
This has to be assessed on a case-by-case basis.
That's obvious.
Well, then I would like to end the official discussion for today and discuss some more unofficial things with you, as I also want to say that I want to come back next Thursday, 7th of May, if possible, regarding the correction work, because too long correction work, like today's, is very laborious, so we should avoid such work.
Bernadette and I have also noticed this, which is why I think that we should not allow too many pages of reports to run before we correct them again.
It's all in my spirit, as I said in other words.
Both Bernadette and I are right about that, especially because the whole correction work is exhausting for her, and not just for you and me.
Then we will stick to it, so I think that next Thursday we will correct the official part of our conversation today.
So be it, my son, and now we can come to the private part.